Go ahead and start. Real happy to have you all here. I want to start and let Michael, Hans, and Winston introduce who you are and tell a little bit about yourself. So, Michael, could you start?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for this. Yeah, I guess I'll introduce myself in terms of like international travel, adventure, and dating. So, I grew up in America, and I yeah, I grew up in a big family, and we touched a lot, we hugged a lot, we were, teased a lot and everything. And I always felt kind of like out of place in white American culture, and I didn't jive that well with the Black American culture either. So, but I never knew what I was missing until I went abroad. I went to Africa for a month, and I had the most incredible experience of my life. I felt more alive there than I ever had before, and that was at the age of 35. And then a few more trips abroad after that, and I eventually came back and said, you know what, I'm not. I'm not gonna stay here anymore. The difference was too huge for me. And since then, I've been buying one-way tickets for the last 10 or 11 years, exploring the world. And you met Hans a couple years ago, and we're now helping guys get free to find an international lifestyle and love style. I can't hear your audio there, Andrew.
That's
Great.
awesome. Um, okay, Hans, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Yes. Well, thanks for having us, Andrew. Yes, I'm Hans Comyn. I was born in Belgium. I had a great, how would I say, safe career. I was schooled as an academic philosopher and sociologist, and I was on my way to become a professor by the 2005, 2006. And I felt something was off, was missing, even though I had a great job, great prospect, great value. Everything was great and secure, but I was missing adventure, as it turned out later. I met Zan 2008, and I got an invitation for adventure and romance into the world, chasing women, trying to understand relationships. And yeah, I gave up my academic career, traveled with Zan for 8 years. And then I went solo 2016, and took about 2 years to really hone my craft alone and find out what's next. I met Michael in 2018 in Malaga, and we connected as allies, as brothers in crime. And yeah, the past 2 years we've been traveling together on and off, and also like zeroing down on what it is that we could give to the world, what we're good at, what we love doing, and what could be our greatest gift. And we believe that with Secret Kingdoms, we stumbled upon something, or no, we found something that's very much needed, that we are very good at, and that we can gift to the world. So that's why we're here.
Okay. Winston?
Yeah, my name is Winston, and I'm also from the U.S. And yeah, I grew up in California, and yeah, I was never really happy there for some reason. I guess I didn't fit in or have a good social clique, or I never got much dates either. And I always thought the problem was me. So, but one day, like those other two guys, I went to Russia in like 2002. And then I realized that, oh, the problem can't be me, because in Russia, I can meet people so easily every day, just like you see in the movies. And I feel good about myself. I feel confident, no social anxiety. And the women were just so different. They were just so feminine, so friendly, so open, so sociable, and very soulful. And I was shocked. I realized what I'd been missing. And so I started going to Russia for 3 times. And then after my third trip, I went to the Philippines, and that's where I lived for another few years. And now I just live in different places on and off. But yeah, most of my time has been in Russia and the Philippines, and it just feels so natural and good to be abroad. I mean, it's not just lower cost of living. It's also because you feel better about yourself. Your self-esteem is better. There's more social connection. It's easier to meet people. It's easier to meet women, to date girls, to make friends with girls. And the whole process is just 1,000 times easier. And the thing is, nobody talks about this on the internet. I mean, not even the alternative media, not even any internet philosophers and travelers never talk about this too, because they try to always stay positive and pretend that everywhere is wonderful. And so you never hear these comparisons. And so I've made it my mission to try to share these comparisons so that people in America can know that they have options, and that if they move abroad, they can solve a lot of problems, especially related to dating, social life, and your self-esteem and mental health. And nobody tells them about that. So I'm trying to spread that good news, like a gospel, a good news gospel. And so I created a website called happierabroad.com, and also a forum and everything on there to try to get this message out. So I hope you heard that okay. I mean,
Yeah, loud and clear. That's awesome.
I'm trying
man.
to speak loud, but
yeah, no, everything came through great, and I love it. We feel the same way. It's like you discover something so incredible. And my experience is, you go back to the States, you try to tell people what they're missing out on, and you get a lot of blank stares. A lot of people that they just, it's something you kind of have to experience. It's really tough to tell people. It's something that people just have to get out there and experience.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys are on the same wavelength and stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, there's just this, when America, there's just this authenticity that you just don't get. It's hard to explain, because in America, it's like you're told you're free, but you don't really feel free. And so like it feels like something.
How does it feel, Winston?
the authorities got him. They snagged him. They're like, he's giving away too much.
Hello? Are you there?
Oh, we thought the authorities snatched you. You disappeared.
Yeah, I don't know why it just shut off and rebooted. But like I said, it feels like your consciousness is being manipulated. And so for some reason, it's hard to explain. In America, you just don't feel free, even though you're told that you're free.
Yeah. But
you never feel free. And I think it's because maybe your mind or your soul or something is just manipulated to be this workaholic robot or something.
Yep.
That just goes through the motions, and it's hard to explain, but that's the best way I can explain it.
Well,
but yeah, it's a taboo topic. No one talks about it.
It's like it's a cult. The root word of culture is cult, and in every culture, there's certain things you're supposed to believe and think about and not think about. And one of the Americans' beliefs is that we're the freest country in the world. And I remember being in Germany about 11 years ago, and I was with some Germans, and they were just all sitting around laughing at Americans, about how we believe we're so free, and we're so unfree, even compared to Germans, which was like surprising to me. But I remember one of the examples they gave is like, you get on you're at the airport, and you go on the automatic walkway, and it's constantly telling you, please watch your step, end of the runway. Like, we've got all these things to basically prevent lawsuits that we do that make us very unfree. Like, we don't a lot of times let the neighbor's kids on our property because we're afraid of a lawsuit. And there's so much we do just for the fear of lawsuits. Like, America is overrun with lawsuits, and that in a way takes away a lot of our freedoms. And there's so many things like that as an American, I remember, I always believed it, we're the freest people in the world. And it's, there's just other kinds of freedoms in the rest of the world that you don't realize until you experience it.
Well, can I apply it to dating? Because we have I'm a dating coach since 12 years. And so I had a rich history of trying to understand women, and also like trying to understand myself, but nothing changed me more than moving to places like Romania or Latin America. And it gave me a lot more success. But in terms of like the freedom that we're bereft from in the West, we have young guys who are just learning about this, start walking up to girls and start talking to them, and they're kind, nice guys, but it gets sometimes a bit awkward, and they are at the danger of being like expelled from school because, the girl could say, oh, you're harassment, and so the freedom just to walk up to a girl and talk to her, is taken away from young men. The freedom to make mistakes, it's shocking to me. It's shocking. And to have this as an option, to go elsewhere, you see that, it's not necessary to try to become good at that system, and it's not necessary to fight that system. You could just try something different.
Yes. Amen to that. I personally, you speak of freedom, Winston, and one of the places I like the most is like Uganda, and it's East Africa, and it's off the map for a lot of Americans, especially. I think Africa is just alone. It seems like a whole other world. It's on the other side of the planet and everything. And one of the things I love about it is it feels like the Wild West to me. Like there's not a big government. There's not a bunch of police. It's more like you need to be aware, and you need to have friends in the right places and whatever. But I feel a level of freedom there that you can't get in America, because America's become this big bureaucracy with so many laws and rules and regulations and taxes and cops and this and that. And I just feel free like in some place like Africa. So yeah, freedom is
Yeah, I have a friend that goes to Africa too. Yeah. I have a friend that goes to Africa a lot too. I've never been there, but I mean, he must like something about it. But I can imagine that because, in a place like that, you might not be totally safe. It doesn't feel totally sterile like in America, but it feels like more genuine. The
Yes.
problem with America is that they say you're free, but the thing is they also want to control everything, because they think if you don't control everything, then something bad will happen. So there's always this negative, fearful, paranoid mindset that if you don't control everything, something bad will happen. And so you can't really be authentic and be yourself or be free, and freedom's not all about the government. It's about personal freedom, social freedom, and people don't understand that. It's the social culture that that gives you your freedom, not just government. Because if you think about it, I mean, the average American is not bothered by government agents every day, and the police don't bother you unless you break the law. So it's not like the government's directly taking away your freedom. It's the entire social culture and society that makes you feel unfree. It's not the government coming and bothering you.
Yes.
So that's what Americans don't understand. They think the government is taking away their freedoms and they need to buy a gun, but it doesn't accomplish anything because it's the social culture that doesn't make you feel free, like you can't even be honest with people. Like if we were in America and I said, hey, how you doing? I mean, you're obligated, no matter how you feel, to say, I'm doing great. And so you can't even be honest about something like that. You always have to pretend that everything's good, even if it's not. And there's just no honesty, even in little things like that. So
those things are very interesting. Like when I go to a new culture to discover ways that they're free that I haven't been, or that Americans aren't, for example. And every culture kind of has its own things. You know, when I was in Uganda, like one of the things that you're really not supposed to do is wear shorts. You know, if you're wearing shorts, it pretty much means you're not a man, you know? So of course, as a traveler there, I don't really care, you know, I don't really care. I still wear shorts, but every culture has its taboos and its things that you're not supposed to do. But the great thing is if you know what the different freedoms are across these different cultures, you have a choice. You're free to choose what place you want to live in, what freedoms you want. You know, you're not just stuck in the fish tank that you were born into.
Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Yeah, and
the-
it's not just America. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I
Okay,
was gonna say it's not just America. I mean, if you take Japan for instance, I mean, in Japan, I think it's a democracy and the government doesn't bother people, but it doesn't feel free because the social culture is too uptight and strict about too many little things. So Japan never feels like a free country, even though it's a democracy. And even though the government doesn't bother people, it's because the social culture is strictly conformist and controlling.
Mm.
So it's all about the social culture. And the US media never tells you this, that, you know, the real unfree countries are where the social culture is restrictive, like Japan. It's not China where you know, the government is a dictatorship. I mean, there are countries less free than China, but the US media is always attacking those kind of countries.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
interesting
sorry
you
for
say that.
interrupting. Go ahead.
It's interesting you say that because to me, Japan feels very free, and it's probably because I don't look Asian, you know. And as a Gaijin, you get freedoms there that the locals don't have. And when I go to Japan, I love it, and I feel very free. I feel like a rock star because exceptions are made for me because I'm not seen as Japanese. So yeah, like Michael is saying, you know, I there's ways that countries are free and ways that they're unfree. And but yeah, to know that and to be able to compare and experience, you have the freedom of choice, you know, and that's what I think is so valuable in just experiencing something different. You know, like you went to Russia or you went to the Philippines, you know, and then you find things that where you feel free, you know, and yeah, or where you feel welcome. I think that's a very yeah, the freedom we gain by knowing the differences, by experiencing those different ways. I think that's the interesting part of it.
I want to ask Michael and Winston. So, Winston, you've talked about how America can. A lot of people in America feel like they're socially disconnected. Like a lot of people are lonely. They're isolated. They're having trouble forming a social circle that they can bond with and have fellowship with. What do you think is the underlying cause for that some people feel like it's socially disconnected? What's the underlying cause?
You want me to go first or him?
You can go first.
Okay, well, yeah, I think the underlying cause is, I think multiple, because America wasn't always like that. If you remember like the 70s or the early 80s, America was more sociable and it was easier to make friends and it wasn't as cliquish. But I think in the mid 80s to 1990, that began to change and people started to not even talk to their neighbors. And I think it's just, I don't know, it just seemed like people got more and more paranoid and wanted to be left alone. And it just, I don't know. It was like all of a sudden people just, and maybe it was the materialism and the greed of the 1980s that did that too. And also all of a sudden there was like a paranoia about serial killers, you know, after like, you know, there was Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. And so American women started being afraid of serial killers. And then there was the AIDS scare too. So it was like the media kept putting out all this stuff to make you paranoid in the 80s. And people started becoming materialistic too in the 80s because of all the greed, you know, and the greed is good and image is everything. And so people began to get more pretentious too. And you can see that like in the high schools in America, people started to become more pretentious. Just like those high school movies, like 16 Candles with Molly Ringwald and Pretty in Pink. You can see how in the 80s people got more pretentious, superficial, more shallow, and just, I don't know. I remember the America in 1982 or 83 as being very different. I mean, people would talk to neighbors and stuff. But this is on the West Coast. I don't know about other states, because sometimes when you go out to the inland states or Midwest, it might be a little different. But I'm talking about like California and Washington, you know, it's mostly there. And also it seems like, you know, the more left people go, like the leftist people go, society, it seems like it becomes more cliquish too. It's not, people are not going to be as down to earth the more leftist they become. That's what I think too. There might be other intangible factors that you can't see, you know, like you know, there might be something in the food that changes people. Who knows? I mean, there could be a whole lot of others.
Yeah, I think there are a number of factors. I think one of them is, you know, kind of American success culture teaches you to essentially be so focused on being efficient and productive. You can start filtering people by, oh, well, is this guy going to buy anything from me? Do I have any use for this person? You know, I used to think this way, you know, and if you weren't a woman that looked like a romantic potential partner, or someone who might be a client of mine, I really didn't even kind of see you, you know. I was so like in my tunnel vision, working towards my success, and one side the relationship realm and the other side, you know, romantic relationship realm, and the other side business success, that I just didn't have time. I didn't have time to connect with people. I didn't have that time. So I think part of it is this kind of American it's in a way like the American success cult, you know, and they even will teach you, you know, well, and though it may be true, you are financially maybe kind of the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's these filters have you leave behind the people that are maybe less financially well off from you, you know, your younger brother, your neighbor, your parents, your whatever, and just focus on yourself and your success, trying to up level. And there's so many ways to leave people behind. Then there's just like individualism in general. You know, there's this idea that we should be self-sufficient and not need anybody. But most places around the world where people are not as well off, wealth is a matter of relationships. It's who you know. You know, I remember being in Brazil. I was in a favela, and we're up on a hilltop. The favela is like the slums, and someone was telling me about like if a refrigerator needs to get carried up the side of the mountain to like someone's place on the side of the mountain, like there's no truck that's going to bring it. It's going to be a couple guys, your neighbors who haul it on their back up the mountain, you know. And it's these social connections that you have when you kind of need each other. But the whole idea of American freedom is to not need anyone. Like, I don't want to need anybody. And that's, you miss out on those relationships where you actually need each other.
Right, because you're so focused on your own success and, getting more financial success. You're just on that you're driven, right? So
there's a great book by Scott Peck. It's called The Different Drum, and it's about community, and he shows how in the United States the individualism has been taken to the extreme, and it has its advantages. Individualism, you know, the self-sufficiency, but it's dangerous when there's no community counterpart. And I'm not given an explanation, but I do see that this is what's happening, that there's less and less a community feel. And that's actually what I love when I travel. There's so many places where I'm welcomed and where there's a sense of community. And to me, that's a real healing, beautiful feeling that yeah, it's much harder to find in the Western world.
I wanted to say something
Yeah,
about
definitely.
I want to say something about Vietnam. You know, in America, people are refusing to wear the masks. Here in Vietnam, no one would refuse. Absolutely no one. It's very socially cohesive here. If something bad were to happen here, everyone would come and help. I mean, this is how they feel about their country. They love it. They love Vietnam. They love their country. No one refused to wear the mask here because they viewed it as you know, this is something we all need to do. And you know, as you know, um, they're all about their, you know, their country. Let's see my internet here.
Yeah, it's just to echo on that, Andrew. When I was in Uganda, you know, and it was explained to me like because I was a little bit curious. There's places where you look around, you see a bunch of sketchy characters and stuff. You're not sure if you're safe and whatever. And it was explained to me like if someone were to steal my wallet or something and go running down the street, there'd be like 20 guys who run after them, chase them and hold them until the cops get there. And they actually depend on that. Like there's just not enough cops to delegate the protection of your community to some force that's out there. You have to pull together and you have to take care of each other. And I actually saw this. I actually saw guys chasing down crooks and holding them by their belt, you know, until the cops got there. But when I realized that, I felt a certain sense of I don't know, peace or safety that it was interesting. I like it. I like the fact that, you know, if something happens, the community is going to stand up for you. And it's not, you know, because you could be like in New York City or something and someone will rob you and everyone's just going to stand and watch, you know, no one's going to jump in and do something, you know, everyone's just going to stand and watch.
So
What's
where
like?
did you grow up in the U.S.? Okay.
I grew up on the East Coast in the countryside of Maryland. And then when I was 17, I moved out to Utah. My ancestors live out there. And then I spent about 17 years in Austin, Texas. How about yourself? Oh, you said California, right? And
Yeah, the Bay Area near San Jose. Yeah.
okay. Andrew, what about you?
I'm originally from Tennessee, and then I said I'm done with Tennessee, and you know, I was looking for something different. I wanted to drive out to California, but I didn't go to California. I went to Las Vegas, and I lived there for 2 years. And then in 2016, I left the country and started traveling. And I started in South America, and now I'm in Asia.
Wow, great. That's awesome. Good for you, man. I mean, I'm jealous you got started so young.
So, I mean, like, I well, I needed
Did
it.
you have a list of questions, Andrew? Or okay.
I do. Um, so for anyone who hasn't been to Mexico, and they want to know like what the life is there in Mexico, as you know, you guys are both foreigners living there. How easy is it to make friends there? How easy is it to meet people? How are the women? Could you tell us a little bit about life in Mexico?
Sure. Well, I've
Yeah, and
lived
is
in
it
Mexico.
dangerous there or not? Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. I've lived in Mexico for, you know, a month or two here, a month or two there over the past maybe 3 or 4 years, but I don't really live in Mexico. I'm still really nomadic, as is Hans. We just happen to be here right now. But my first experience with Mexico was when I lived in Austin and I had a landscaping company, and I hired a lot of Mexicans to work for me. And I loved the guys because they were so friendly, you know, and they're so funny. You know, the political correctness has not made its way to Mexico. So, you know, one of the ways you bond is just, you know, taking the piss. You know, like if like people will call their grandmother gordita here, like my little fatty, you know, like she's my little fatty. And it's not a negative thing. It's like the things that make you different are the things that unite us because you can laugh at them. So I find like and this is a generalization because Mexico is a pretty big country actually. There's a I don't know, something like 100 million people in Mexico, maybe a little bit less than that. But there are some very distinct parts. I lived in Acapulco for several months back in 2017 when it was known as the murder capital of the world. And but what I found is that the police never mess with you, and the cartel never messes with you. Those are kind of the two dangerous forces down here, are the police and the cartel. But they don't really want the international attention. And the thing is, if you're not buying, selling drugs, they don't care. They don't want the American government coming in and causing a stir. So I drove around with on a motorcycle with no license plate and without a helmet and stuff like that. I drive right by the police. I never once got stopped. They never messed with me. But a couple of years later, one of the guys I'd met there and had dinner with him and his wife one evening, I found out that he was shot and killed by the cartel. But it's because he had started growing his own marijuana and he was selling it to his expat friends. And so that's a big no-no in Mexico. It's definitely not something that I would advise getting into down here. Right now we're in central Mexico. We're like in the mountains of central Mexico. And there's incredible food here. One of the best things I think about Mexico is the food. I love Mexican food and I love spicy food. It's a reason why I love Thailand as well. And yeah, a lot of things happen here through relationships. You know, I find the people to be very warm and welcoming generally, but there's different there's different parts of Mexico. I don't know if I've been across the border into Mexico from Texas and California, and kind of like those party towns. I think there's a lot of danger in some of those areas, but and I've been down to Tulum and what is it, Cancun down there, and what's the other
Playa del
town?
Carmen.
Playa del Carmen. I don't really like it. It's hot. It's got nice beaches, but it's kind of like Cancun is very touristy, and then Tulum is like the hipster tourist spot, and everyone going down there and trying to look cool, and you're really overpaying for stuff, and it's oftentimes you don't get a genuine connection with the locals because you're seen as a tourist. Hans, what would you add to all that?
Yeah, it's an influencer hub. No, my experience with Mexico is, well, my first experience was 2008, 9, and then I stayed in a bit in Playa 2010, and it was great back then. Now coming back to Tulum and Playa, it has changed a lot. Very touristic now, bit seedy. I didn't enjoy it either. But right now we're in a mountain area, and we usually don't say exactly where we are because of what we do. We don't want people to just come and just hang out. So, but this has been a revelation to me. You know, I never heard of this town until 2 months ago, and after a month being here, it's one of my favorite cities in the world. The weather's perfect, the food is great, the prices are very low. I'm renting a studio, and it's like $150. It's ridiculous. The people are very welcoming. Well, that's maybe courtesy of the people that we know, but I felt very welcome here. And I'm a cyclist too, and the nature here is so incredible. You know, yesterday I was crying on my bike how beautiful it was. You know, mountains and flats, and so I think, like Michael says, Mexico is huge. You know, but this city is seen as the safest city. To answer your question, Winston. So I've been here a month. Not once have I felt unsafe. In fact, I feel very, very safe. You know, and yeah, it's unlike Playa, where yeah, the police robbed money from me, So, so, but yes, it's been a revelation and like a gift because I didn't see it coming, and I really
Yeah,
love it where we are.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like you got robbed by the cops, Hans, coming out from the ATM, and there's definitely crime in Mexico, and Latin America in general. I think there's generally more crime than you might find in the States as far as like petty theft and muggings and stuff like that. But I mostly travel based on invitations, and so I go and I stay with friends, and I have friends taking care of me, and I think that's really the way to do it to make things a lot safer.
Winston, could you talk about how living in Taiwan is from your perspective as an American?
Well, I'm seen as more of a local in Taiwan, not as a foreigner. So, um, yeah, it's kind of awkward because people think I'm a local, and I'm really not, because I just don't have I'm more American than Taiwanese. But yeah, it's a bit awkward, and it for me it's kind of like America. You just don't. I mean, people just don't talk to you if you're a stranger unless you're introduced, and even if I am introduced, there's just not much to talk about because people just aren't very just people just don't have much to say. There's not the I mean, people aren't like silly and playful like in Philippines or Southeast Asia or something. So yeah, I don't connect very well with Northeast Asians mostly, except maybe in China. In China, I do sort of um, have a little more positive experience. But the thing is, I'm not materialistic, or a workaholic, and I'm not that interested in making money or getting rich. So I just don't have a lot in common with Northeast Asians, and they're not very like into creativity and imagination and philosophy. So yeah, Northeast Asians and I just don't connect. That's why I don't have. I mean, I don't feel very connected with Japanese either, or Koreans, or Taiwanese or Hong Kongese. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. But I mean, some people do love it here. So it depends on the person, because different guys are going to say different things, depending on how they vibe with everyone. So if you ask somebody else, they might say something different, but it also depends on who you are too, and different people attract different things, and so I just don't get very good energy in Northeast Asia. I get in Southeast Asia, it's completely different. Like if I was in Vietnam or Cambodia or Thailand, I feel a lot more normal. Like I mean, I know people there are materialistic too, but they're more like silly, playful, flirtatious, So I feel more comfortable there because you can sort of like be yourself, Whereas in Northeast Asia, it's kind of like very serious. It's kind of like America, really serious, and like all business. That's the term I was looking for. It's all business, like you don't talk to a stranger unless there's a reason, like a business reason. Otherwise, you're supposed to leave people alone. There's that kind of mentality. So it's not just America. I have the same problems in Northeast Asia too. So
Yeah, it's interesting
but
you
yeah,
say that.
Southeast Asia, where you're at in Vietnam, I heard is very different.
In
Southeast Asia is completely different though. Yeah.
Of those Northeast countries you mentioned, I've only been
Go
to
ahead.
Hong Kong, and my experience there was there were so many people, but no one even looks you in the eyes. No one looks you in the eyes or smiles.
Yeah, it's
And
like New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt completely alone there, even though there's tons of people.
Eyes look cold and nobody looks you in the eye, or it's not relaxed. Like everyone's a busy bee, like an ant going someplace. I mean, China's a little bit like that too, but the thing is, in China, you have so many different types of people that there's always somebody that's going to talk to you or make friends or you know, socialize with you. Even if it's like 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 200, there's always somebody, because
Yeah.
there's so many, and it's not as homogenous. There's so many people, but Hong Kong is like New York. I mean, everyone's just in a rush. You know, it's almost like watching ants move back and forth. It's a busy bee, and nobody stops and thinks, what am I doing here? Where am I going? Why am I doing this? You know, nobody stops and thinks. It's like everyone's on automatic pilot, on autopilot, just walking quickly toward a destination. It's like, why are you doing this? What's the point of making a living if all you do is make a living? There's no life to make a living for. You're just on the treadmill for no reason. Nobody stops and thinks and or looks in you in the eye or tries to
Winston,
break out of a trance. It's like they're in a trance and they're not.
Winston, you
Yeah,
mentioned
go
like
ahead.
you mentioned creativity and things like that. What are you doing exactly?
Oh, you mean what I do, or?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I run a website at happierabroad.com, and I'm trying to get some books done and YouTube videos done and essays done, you know, but, you know, it's just hard to stay motivated, you know, when you have this lockdown and all these restrictions, and it's kind of depressing.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not an artist in like a painter or something, or a musician, but I'm kind of like a philosopher. So I study like religion, esoteric stuff, spirituality, philosophy, and some other esoteric branches like Gnosticism and Theosophy and stuff. So yeah, I'm on sort of a spiritual path too, and I like to debate things like philosophy, like, you know, religion, you know, like, and stuff. So
You know, I think some of these.
yeah, I am. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
We have a little bit of a delay here, so we keep interrupting each other. No, I was just going to say that I think some of these countries that we're mentioning, like the U.S. and Korea and China and stuff like this, are because they're so far north. Winter is coming. You know, winter is coming, so you need to work hard so you're prepared for the winter. But the more you go towards the equator, I think generally
Yeah.
people, they just have this sense that, oh yeah, I can fish tomorrow. Food is always growing year round. Like, it's just more of a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in the south, in southern parts of the area, it's more relaxed and more tropical, and in the northern part areas, they're more cold, you know, and businesslike and workaholic, and that's the thing that Chinese and Americans have in common. They're very workaholic and they pragmatic, and they believe that the purpose of the existence is to work and make money and thrive in a career. It's not to do what you love or to be free or to follow your passion. It's to,
Travel is something to do.
I mean, it's
once
not to do what you love. It's to basically to have a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, travel is something to do once you retire, if you're not already dead by that point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanna
And
I
it's
wanna
hard to
ask-
be free, because if you have a really high cost of living, then you have to be a workaholic to survive in America. You know, to pay off the house and the car and raise a family, you have to be a workaholic, you and your wife, and there's just no point. I mean, because we forgot to mention that in the 70s and 80s, inflation skyrocketed in America, and before that, the cost of living was much lower. So if you have a really high cost of living where everything costs an arm and a leg, you know, even to call a plumber costs an arm and a leg, then you have to be a workaholic, which takes away all your freedom. So you don't have any real freedom. Even if you can vote in a democracy, you don't have any freedom because you have to be a workaholic in a high cost of living country. People don't talk about that, you know, but that's the truth, you know.
Yep. Andrew, you were
Uh,
about to ask something?
Michael and Winston, I know you have expressed that you're living an international lifestyle. Would you ever consider moving back to America? Both of you.
Me, no. That's an easy question. No. No, I have way too many complaints about America, and I feel so much more alive in so many other places of the world. Um, but it's even hard for me to imagine settling in one country, let alone America. But no.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but I do like America for like the its national parks and nature and scenery. You know, like I like doing road trips around Utah and Arizona because the nature is so beautiful, and so I will go on a road trip for a few months, or like around Utah or Colorado or Arizona or New Mexico, and you know, you there's a lot of free places you can camp and go hiking, and you know, it's really gorgeous, the hiking and the landscapes, you know, but not to live permanently, you know. But I do like doing road trips in America because it's really beautiful in terms of nature, just not in terms of culture.
Yeah, I go back to visit family basically, and sometimes friends. That's about it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be there.
That's so interesting, Michael, that you said that you feel more alive. Because Winston also said the exact same thing. He used the word alive. I heard you say that in an interview. So I think that's very interesting. That you feel more alive outside of America. Okay. I do also. I feel that way also.
I think part of it is that when you're someplace else, you don't you don't assume that you understand everything around you. You're not sure why someone says something. You're not sure how things work. You're not sure about a lot of things. So you have to be curious. You're like in a state of awareness and curiosity and intrigue. And the people are like that around you as well. They're like, who is this strange looking guy coming to my town? And what's he doing? And so you get to meet in that interesting, alive place of the unknown much more of the time. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, for some reason you do feel alive more in countries that have social connection. I don't know why I felt that way in the Philippines all the time. Um, and I don't know if you guys remember the great mythologist Joseph Campbell. He had a quote saying um, that what people really want is not meaning, but the rapture of being alive. And that's a really good quote by Joseph Campbell. That's what real people really need deep down, is it's the rapture of feeling alive. It's not just looking for meaning. But in America, you don't have that because you feel like you're just going through the motions without feeling alive or any true joy or authenticity. You're just pretending and going through the motions. You know, your heart's not really there, you know.
Yeah, and
It's hard to explain.
the mode of life is also it's very much about planning for the future, and it's far less about enjoying the moment and enjoying relationships. The life to be lived is somewhere off in the distance that you have to plan for and sacrifice for and work for. And so if you want to be alive, just go on your Instagram and Facebook for a little while and pretend like you're alive.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask another question. This is about this is a touchy subject. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. A lot of American men have expressed dissatisfaction with American women. Let's be real honest about this. What do you think the underlying issue is with American women that causes American men to seek out foreign women in other countries?
Oh man, this is gonna have to be like a multi-hour conversation here.
That'll take hours to go into.
No, I
Yeah.
think the guy who introduced me to the Latino world, he expressed it this way. He said that, American women are great business women. They're great women to go into business to, but they're going to be like that in relationship. They're going to try to negotiate their way into a relationship agreement with you, and and everything's in negotiation. Whereas like a Latina, she's more likely just to like love you so much with her cooking, with her touch, with how she dresses up, with everything, that you just never want to leave, because she just makes it, she just makes you feel so great that you never want to leave. Whereas the American woman, it's much more of a business deal. And I found that to map on pretty well. That really resonates with me. That's one of many factors that yeah, has me not even interested for the most part in relationship with American women.
I'll tell you what I saw as the biggest difference between, this must be a generalization, but the difference between Western women and non-Western women, or the women I feel very attracted to and the ones I'm not. And the difference is a sense of entitlement or lack thereof. And what I've noticed is Western women have way more a sense of entitlement, meaning they feel that just because they are a woman, they are entitled to success in romance. They're entitled to success in romance, and it's the man's job to give it to them. And so the whole dating scene has one that looks very much as if the guy is applying for the job of boyfriend, And so, like Michael says, it's very transactional. But the main thing about that is that the women are not, in my experience, they're not playing along in the dance that is seduction and that's necessary for a relationship to be a success. They're not playing along, like when Winston was calling the playfulness that he resonates with. That's something that I've seen also in Western women. They're not playing along, and you have to like convince them of something. And then you go to other places like Romania or Latin America, and all of a sudden women are playing along. They're also seducing you. They're dancing along. They accept your invitation and they say, let's dance, or not, but it's not this kind of like you have to force the women to dance with you, And so, yeah, when actually is the first time I think of it, it's when the dating scene in America is very much like a game, a power game, the dating scene abroad is way more of a dance. And once the woman has accepted to dance, she's dancing with you, and so that's for me a huge difference that I see time and time again. I go back to Belgium and I see women that are just compare with women in Colombia or in Romania. They're nowhere near as beautiful, and they give me attitude, and I'm thinking, come on, it's, and that's the sense of entitlement is for me the biggest difference I have seen, and is the reason why when men go abroad and they meet these women, they go, wow, I didn't know this existed,
Hans, I'll just piggyback on what you said about the dance. I remember the first time I approached, this was a woman, she lived in Mexico and she'd been in Austin just like a week or two. And I was at this conference, full of American women. And I see this, beautiful Mexican woman, and she's facing the window outside, sitting down. And I came up to say hello to her. And the kind of response I'd never had like from a woman, the way she turned her body and just like was ready for like my performance, she's like, okay, what is this guy gonna do to win over my affection, And like in a Latin dance, where like a lot of the Latin dances are the man, he's doing his masculine thing, and then she responds pretending like she doesn't want it and whatever. It was kind of like that. And yeah, it's difficult to explain, but the way that I felt just in that moment, it was like, oh wow, there's a different way that women can be with you. I'm curious to hear Winston's take on this. I have more to say, but
You mean on American women? Gosh, I think it's multiple. I mean, I agree with what you say. I mean, they're just too businesslike and too demanding, and it's not just that, but it's just they're just not as feminine either. They're not trying to be pleasing or nurturing or sensual or enthusiastic. They're kind of just too businesslike, and I've just never understood how to vibe with that, because I'm not like a person that's cold and businesslike. So I've never been able to connect with that. So it's not just that they're entitled or spoiled or too masculine, you know, which they are too. They're kind of masculine. I just don't know how to connect with them because they're just not as authentic. You know, it seems like they're just trying to be something they're not. They're trying to be a woman and trying to be a man and trying to be independent. You know, they're trying to wear too many hats. And, you know, they thought that the thing is they don't even most modern American women don't even look happy. You know, they thought that being independent and having a being able to have a career, you know, would make them happy, but they don't look happy. There's no inner peace. Even if they're making a lot of money and they have a good job, there's no inner peace. You know, I mean, it's not just American women, just, you know, Americans in general, you know, they're just not, there's no inner joy, you know, or contentment. You know, it's kind of like they're pretending to be happy. But yeah, the thing is, in outside of Western countries, the women are definitely more feminine, you know, not as masculine. And I don't know what happened to make women more masculine because in the 60s and 70s, American women did look more feminine. And I don't know if that's the food or the culture, you know, trying to invert, trying to make women into men and men into women, you know, trying to invert the gender. It's like they're trying to make everyone more androgynous,
Yeah.
you know, in America. And it's just kind of sickening, you know, because it's not natural. So it's like, it's hard to explain. It's almost like some sort of communism or transhumanism has taken over America where everything natural is now bad. And they
Yes.
just want to flip everything around. And it's kind of like a dystopia, kind of like a science fiction dystopian or something. It's kind of
Yeah.
almost like a Twilight Zone. It's really scary.
I remember being in Denver in 2008, and downtown Denver, you know, where women wear high heels and dresses and like, you know, like really inspiring. And then you go like 20 minutes towards Boulder, Colorado, which is the progressive, it's kind of like the future that we're heading towards. And none of the women wore high heels. They walked like football players, you know, they walked like they're guys, you know, walking down the street. And there was absolutely nothing inspiring, even just physically, like looking at them, the way that they walked was, it was like, yeah, night and day. But if that's the future, if that's the direction America is headed, it's, yeah, guys might do great to just have the experience of going somewhere where it's completely different. I remember my first time dancing with an Eastern European woman in Belgium, and she just gave herself to me in the first moment of the first dance. She just melted in my arms, and it was like I'd never experienced that before on the dance floor. And it was like a strange experience, but so beautiful, and it touched me. And like I'll never forget that moment. It was just like a sense of like, wow, this is possible, you know. And it's hard to go back after you have that kind of experience. It's like that used up quote that, you know, once you go black, you never go back. It's like once you've experienced being with a really feminine woman from outside the States, it's really hard to go back.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can never get used to, you know, back the way back it is back in America again when you've experienced that. And it's like the foreign women just, you know, it seems like they like men more, you know. And that's one of the main problems is in America, women just don't like men that much. And I think it's because in the 1990s, the feminism, it didn't turn into, I mean, it changed. It became not just about equality. It became about hating men. And they call that third wave feminism. So third wave feminism all of a sudden encouraged independence. It encouraged women to hate men, you know, which is really evil, I think. And it just made them think you don't need men. You should be independent, you know, or you can be a lesbian if you want, you know. So it just changed that attitude. And so their attitude, fundamental attitude is really different. They just don't like men in general, fundamentally. And you can
Yeah,
feel it too. You can feel it when someone doesn't like you.
Yes.
It's very obvious. You can sense it. It's unmistakable.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
a certain
they-
aura and vibe.
yes. Yeah, they don't even have to say anything, right? You just feel it when you just walk in the room.
Right. And you
I-
can sense when someone's approachable too. I mean, without talking to a girl, I can sense whether she has a shield around her or wants to be approached or not without ever saying anything. I
Yes.
mean, it's a different body language and vibe, you know, overseas when, you know, there's this relaxedness. You probably experience it in Mexico too. There's this relaxedness where people will look at you and it's okay to approach because there's like, you know, we're all, you know, part of this, we're all human beings. And so there's this instant familiarity that
Yeah,
you just don't get in colder countries.
yeah, there's I also think about it like this, like in Latin America, the women, the local women, they do complain about the local men, but the difference is they're not expecting those men to be any different. They just, yeah, they complain about men, but they don't want them to be not masculine. It's not like they want them to be women. They love that they're men, and yeah, they have their complaints about men, and they get together and they talk about men, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the difference is they're not expecting them to be someone else.
Right.
I was in Kenya in 2014, and there were a couple of backpacking Canadian girls who didn't have a place. This was late at night, so I invited them to come and stay in one of the extra rooms in the place I was in, and we got to talking late that night, and they were expressing they were really righteous about this too, that they felt like a guy approaching a girl was basically rape. and I started to defend guys approaching girls, and their attitude was like, you're defending rape, you know, be careful what you say. And I couldn't believe it. And I was like, man, is this what's going on back in North America in the time I've been gone? I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's like brainwashing. I mean, I'm sure for thousands of years it was okay to you know, to flirt or to talk to people, you know, because for example, in Russia, I mean, if I approach girls every day and they're not interested, they'll just tell you, no, I'm not interested, but they don't treat it like a crime, like you've transgressed. You know, they'll just say, I'm not interested, thank you, you know, and that's all. It doesn't feel like you
Mhm,
violated something,
exactly.
some rule. Even in China, I mean, flirting is not part of Chinese culture, but nobody's gonna like call the security guard and report you for sexual harassment over it. I mean, that's just really artificially conditioned. I mean, that's not natural. You
Yeah, and
know,
Well,
it's
and
currently
with
getting worse.
Joe Biden taking office this next year, there's likely to be a lot more feminism being shoved down men's throats. So yeah, for guys listening to this, there's options. There's ways out. There's other places. There's hope. Andrew, did you
yeah,
have another question here? There he is.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to ask all of you, what is an unforget? Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Is no delay? Okay. What is an unforgettable experience you had while traveling that changed you for the better? Something that changed your heart, your soul, your spirit, like a huge moment. Um, just something that really, really kind of, made you changed you, made you a better person.
I I've had so many of those. I've shared briefly a few of them, but I'll share one. There was a moment I was in the northern Argentina, up in the mountains, in this small indigenous town, and I was out for a hike along this trail, and I came upon this little boy, and he had these, you know, I was eating this tangerine, and I was peeling it, and he came up, and I didn't speak much Spanish at the time, but I could tell he wanted, you know, he wanted a piece of my fruit, and there was no hesitancy in him, you know. He just came right up to me like I was a friend, like he knew me, and I gave him some fruit, and he started talking. He's like, "Come here," you know. And we walked a little further down the trail, and he was like 5 years old, by the way. He took me a little further down the trail, and there's like his 3-year-old brother, you know, introduced me to his 3-year-old brother, and I'm like, because I'm American, you know, like you don't hang out in private with people's kids in America, you know, like you could get accused of this, that, or whatever, you know. So I'm like looking around, like, where are their parents, you know? And then around the bend came, I think, another girl and an infant. She was holding an infant. She must have been like 8, and then with the infant, I'm not sure if they're all the same family or whatever, but they're just really friendly with me. And then little Eric, the little 5-year-old I met, he wants me to climb up this cliff with him, like right on the side of the path. And I'm like, man, I definitely have all my American stuff going on. Like, you know, I should not be connecting too much with this little boy. I should not wander off with him. You know, if something happens to him, maybe I'll get sued. I'll get, you know, like I got all my American stuff going on. But I was also aware of like my American shit, you know? And so I was like, fuck this, you know, I'm going to go with him. He wants to climb the cliff. Let's climb the cliff. So we climb up to the top, and he's showing me these different plants, and he's showing me this and that. And like we're friends, and, you know, he ends up going down the cliff and saying goodbye, and they go on their way. And it was just a moment to me that I thought like, it was really clear to me, like the filter between me connecting with other people, like that's in me, and that was embedded by my culture. And I almost didn't share this really beautiful moment with this little boy because of all that stuff, you know. And I began watching out for it more and more, you know. When is my filter getting in the way of just an authentic connection with somebody? There have been so many of those moments, but just wanted to share one.
I had a moment exactly like that yesterday, you know, biking off and into the mountains and villages where Zapoteca, the indigenous um, Mexicans, they don't even speak Spanish. The kids don't speak Spanish. They speak their own language. And you come into a village with a bike, and you see the kids watching, you know, and I'm a guerro. I'm a white skin. And you see the girls like really like, and the boys, and they want to, they're so fascinated, and then they're also a little afraid to come close, you know. Just that experience is incredible, you know. And I would say the fact that I started traveling to realize, wow, there's different things out there in the world, you know, that to me was so eye-opening, and yeah, coming to some kind of peace, you know. The thing that first came to mind when you said that, Andrew, I don't know if this, but I remember being in Japan, and I had a Japanese girlfriend, and she didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Japanese. And I remember waking up, and she's at my desk, and she's repairing my pants. And it was it sounds stupid, you know, but the of course she was doing this, like the self, like it was so normal for her to do that, you know. But for me to wake up and see that she would do that, you know, that there are women out there who are not afraid to just do that, you know, or you know, and just want to please me, make me happy, you know, for no other reason that makes her happy. It was very emotional to me, and it's stupid maybe to other people, but that really like showed me like there's a different femininity out there, you know. And yeah, that was heartbreaking to me. And made me a better man, I would say, because that's the women, I felt like a man because of it, and I knew what kind of man I want to be for women, you know, and for what kind of women I want to be that man. So something like that, and the memory of that for sure makes me a better man.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those experiences too, but I think the most memorable for me was in 2002 when I first went to Russia, I was pretty surprised. It was like for the first time in my whole life, I felt no social anxiety, no shyness. And so I thought it was me. I thought, oh, I'm just an introvert and maybe I'm shy or something, or maybe I have autism or whatever, or social anxiety or whatever. But all of a sudden, I felt no social anxiety, no shyness. I felt like I could be outgoing and it would fit the flow. It didn't feel awkward. And then a couple of guys from my hostel took me out on a tour around St. Petersburg, Russia. And in a museum, a girl approached me and started talking to me out of nowhere. And she looked like Laura Croft from Tomb Raider. And I was surprised. I even videoed it. So I have a video of it too, where we made eye contact and talked to each other. And and so I got her number and started trying to date her after that. I was pretty surprised because I thought that only happened in movies. I mean, in America, that would never happen to just walk into a museum and make eye contact with a girl and then start talking to her. I mean, that doesn't happen in America, at least not for me. And so I was very surprised that first 2 days in St. Petersburg, Russia, were because I thought that was impossible. I thought this is a dream or something. And why didn't I come earlier? And the thing is, in America, you think everywhere is like a hellhole. All foreign countries have nothing but chaos and crime. You don't know that they're more friendly and authentic because you don't see that in the movies. That other countries are friendlier. So that was very eye-opening to me. I mean, it was almost like being born again. It was very transformative. It's kind of like a Christian telling you, about his born again experience. It's like, beyond words. It's hard to it's hard to put into words. It's like you're born again, you're transformed again. You never see life the same way again. And unfortunately, after that, you can never readjust back to America again and get used to it either, because you know that there's a better choice. And it was just very, very surreal, that first trip in Russia, because for the first time, no social anxiety, no shyness. I could feel like an extrovert or outgoing, and it was all natural. And I really wish I could go to America and talk to the Psychiatric Association and tell them all this and saying, hey, you shouldn't tell people to take drugs or antidepressants. Why not tell them to go overseas to a friendlier country? Then they wouldn't have social anxiety anymore. But that's not profitable. That's not profitable. So they're never going to tell you that. I mean, the mental health industry in America. So, but I wish I could do a TED Talk and tell that. But it'd probably be censored if I talked about it. It's just.
Well, I feel really passionate about that point. That is one of the things about American culture, is that there's all this focus on self-improvement and self-development and self-help. The idea is like, if you're not happy in America, which is quote unquote the freest country in the world and the best country in the world and the richest country in the world and all this, if you're not happy here, then something's wrong with you. And you need to take a pill, you need to take a course, you need to see a psychiatrist, you need to take a seminar, all this kind of stuff. It's like, wait a second. Maybe there is something fucked up about the culture. Maybe there is. And what if, or at least maybe this is simply not the culture where I'm going to feel the most alive, the most free, the most happy, the most self-expressed. And why not try a different environment, a different place. I've had several times in my life, I tell this story a lot, but when I was 17, my mom had already been like at war with my dad for a few years. She was raging against the patriarchy in all its forms, from God to her father, to my father, to, everything. And I was the oldest male in the house. And I finally broke free, and I left at 17 and I went out west. And I was part of a minority religion, and it was very minority back east, but out in Utah, where everyone was Mormon, because that's the religion I was raised in. The first day of school, the first class of school, everyone's talking about what we did in church yesterday. It's like, wait a second, what? Like, I'm on the insider now? Like, I'm, all of a sudden I was an insider immediately instead of an outsider. first day of lunch, the head cheerleader, I get my tray to go sit down by myself at the lunch table as usual. And then the head cheerleader comes over and all the female cheerleaders, and they all want to talk to the new kid from the East Coast, you know? So like I was instantly like popular and stuff like this. And I didn't change me. I just changed my location and everything changed. You know, I came alive and everything changed. And so like I had that experience early on. It wasn't by going to a different country, but it was simply making a change in location. And sometimes that's all it takes, you know?
Yeah, I wonder why the self-improvement industry never talks about changing location. They always want you to change yourself, and you know, there's nothing wrong with changing yourself, but sometimes that's not enough. I mean, just being positive is not going to make everything positive or make everything good. I mean, I can be positive and say, "Hey, I'm doing great." All I want. It doesn't change the environment. It doesn't change the culture. It doesn't change the people around me just
You
because
know,
I act positive.
you know what it does? It keeps you working and paying your taxes and hoping things will get better tomorrow.
Yeah, and consuming too. But it's strange that nobody in the self-improvement industry talks about changing your location
Well,
when sometimes that's the key.
well, that would be talking against their own business, because then there would be no more self-improvement. So it's really logical, in the same way that America will not promote traveling and dating abroad, because if men would experience that, many of them would never return. And so it's completely in the interest of America not to promote that kind of idea. It's completely in the interest
Yeah,
of
but what I don't get is why can't they just put it on the table and let me present the benefits and the other side present their benefits and let's see who wins the audience, you know. It should be at
Yes.
least on an open discussion table, but they won't even do that because if I did a TED talk about this, I'm sure it'd be censored or they'd probably stop recording it after a while. I mean, if you did a
You've
TED talk and talked about all this, I'm just saying, or something.
Winston, Winston, you've been doing your site for what, like 20 years now or something? What kind of like negative feedback have you gotten? What kind of, I don't know. Yeah, negative
Oh,
feedback have you gotten?
since 2007, so maybe 13 years. Um, 13 years, but um, yeah. I mean, I don't get a lot of negative feedback directly, but on third-party websites, I get some negative feedback, like on other forums and stuff. And um, yeah, and there's people that just bash me, but you know, it's the usual, ridicule and insults like, "Oh, you're just a loser" or something, or you just can't get American women because you're not good enough or something, and it's just the typical stuff, and some people just think it's plain bizarre too, But I always tell people, it's not for everybody. I mean, some people are happy in America and they belong there. They have a good wife and a good job. So it's not for everybody, but it's for some people, And so I just think whether it's for somebody or not, it should be on an open table. And what was I going to say? Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I always tell them, if the problem is me, if I'm a loser, then how come in other countries, I feel so much better and am able to meet people so easily, just like you, just like you see in the movies. It's just so smooth and natural. Why is it that I have different experiences in different countries if the problem is me? And they can never explain that. All they can say is, "Oh, well, you're a foreigner and you look more like novelty, and you know, so people are going to be nicer to you." I mean, that might be partially true, but that's not all that there is. It's not just because I'm a novelty overseas. It's also because if it was all about novelty, then every Chinese immigrant that goes to America would experience novelty, and everyone, and they would meet only friendly people. But that's not the case.
Also,
So yeah,
there,
you just
there,
fit in better others overseas. It's not just the novelty. It's about fitting it in and connecting better. You know, some
yeah.
pe- some I mean, some people just resonate better abroad, especially if you're not materialistic, you're not into, you know, if you don't fit into American culture, there's a lot of, some people fit into Western cultures like France better too than America or Germany or Spain. I mean, or Italy. I mean, there's even American women that prefer living in France or Italy than in America. Even actors like Johnny Depp or was it Gwyneth Paltrow or something? I mean, they prefer living abroad too.
Yes.
And
Yeah, well,
even Thomas Jefferson preferred living in France than America too. So some of the founding fathers preferred living in France too. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin preferred living in France and England too than in America. So he was abroad most of his retirement years.
Yeah, that's
So
a
it's
great
not
point
just
you
me.
bring up. Yeah, it's I think a lot of this can be explained by just thinking of culture as a cult. A culture is designed to shame certain thoughts and behaviors and to honor others so that it keeps things the same. It keeps the power structure in place. It keeps the people that are benefiting continuing to benefit. And it keeps people who are not happy there from questioning why they're going along with the BS, And so if people are not happy, thrilled, fully alive, excited about the women in America or any place that they find themselves, it's in their best interest to dare to question these excuses they have for not traveling abroad. Oh, this is only for losers. Oh, this is that. This is the mental prison that's keeping them trapped and putting up with bullshit that they complain about but don't do anything about. And to me, that's kind of being a loser, If you just stay and complain and you don't do anything about it and you make excuses for not doing anything about it, that's being a loser. So, something to think about.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's just that there's so few people talking about this, very few people. Even on YouTube, very few people are talking about this. That's, Andrew is one of the, I don't know if you guys have made any YouTube videos, but, Andrew's made a couple, about why you should get out of America. I've made a couple, but, it's not enough. We need to get more. I mean, we need to make a lot more of these because,
I feel like there's a big movement coming. I think it's going to happen. I think just like you're seeing a huge influx of immigration into the States and Europe, you're going to see a huge outflux the other directions by guys who wake up and say, you know what? Life is better in other places. I don't have to sit here as things get worse and worse and worse for me. And I don't have to sit there and take it, Why live in a country where men are no longer honored and respected, but expected to apologize for their existence and for all the problems in history and on the planet? The patriarchy, like everything with wrong with the world is men's fault, It's not, you don't have to put up with that. And I feel like there's going to be a huge exodus in the coming years. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to be to be meeting you guys and to add our voices to what you guys are up to.
Yeah, I heard there are more American expats now than before. Supposedly there's like 5 million or something. But the thing is, most American expats, they don't write or blog about their experiences. They're very concerned with privacy.
Yeah.
So they won't even put up a YouTube video about their life abroad. I mean, most expats are very privacy oriented. So I can't get them on an interview or something. It's hard to find somebody.
Yeah, most people, I think, there are a lot of secrets. There are secrets about, like, if I'm in Kenya and I'm experiencing, like, there's a lot of things that I'm inclined not to talk about. One, because I don't want a bunch of other Westerners showing up and kind of ruining the scene. Two, because I don't want to offend the local people. Like, there's some things I would like to share with the guys back home that's like, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. Here's the dark side, here's the negative side. Like, there's a lot of things that it makes sense why people don't share it. But that's part of what Hans and I are up to is, and one of the things we're sharing with our community is we're capturing some private interviews where people don't share their face, they don't share their name, and we can have a real conversation with them, maybe over a whiskey or whatever. Like, I'm sure conversations, Winston, that happen, and Andrew, like with guys over a drink at the bar, where you're like, man, can you believe that things are like this over here, and what everyone else is missing out on back home? And there are a lot of things that people simply won't share if it's gonna be be put online for the world to see. No one wants that level of shaming and whatever that can happen.
Yeah, especially if you're like in Pattaya or Bangkok or Angeles City, Philippines. I mean, in a huge red light district. I mean, everybody wants that kept confidential.
Right. Right. Yes.
But I was gonna say, there's little things too, like you never realize. For example, you know how in America, if you stay home on a Friday night or Saturday night, people think you're some loser or nerd. I mean, in other countries, nobody thinks like that. If you're at a restaurant alone, people don't think you're a loser or something, or at the movies alone. People don't look at you and judge you and think, oh, there's something wrong with you. You look like a loser. In America, I mean, it looks bad to go to a movie alone or be in a restaurant alone. It looks like, I mean, nobody does it because it looks bad. There's so many negative stigmas, and if you have friends and they'll all expect that if you're cool, you're going to be doing something fun on Friday night or Saturday night, so there's so many ways people judge you in America all the time that they don't overseas.
I think we're also more present to the stigma that comes from our home country where we grew up, and I think there's a lot of stigmas that people might have in other countries that don't affect you. Like when I'm in Uganda and I'm wearing shorts and people look at me funny, I don't care. Like I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But if I grew up there, it would probably affect me more. But yeah, and also there's a lot of, like, I think about friends back home in the States, like my brother living out in the countryside in Texas, and he's single again now. And there's not really single lady options around there. And there's not many single people around. There's not many options. But you go to a lot of different places on the planet where there's tons of single people and there's tons of international people, and the dating scenes are completely different. And yeah. So I'm a huge fan of, like, you don't even have to move abroad necessarily, but if you can establish kind of a home away from home in a place where you really have magic with the women, you feel much more alive, and you feel like you're welcome back anytime, and you can go back as often as you want. That's what we talk about with this idea of having a secret kingdom. Like, you don't need to decide to change your whole lifestyle immediately, but if you simply find one place on this planet where you feel far more alive, and you have friends or a girlfriend or people who feel like family welcoming you back with open arms as often as you want, that's the first real step. If you can find that somewhere on the planet, then you have options. You don't have to sit and put up with the BS back home.
Yeah, living part of the year overseas is better than nothing, I guess. I mean, but of course, I mean, some people just don't have the money, to move abroad, and even if they want to, some people can't afford it, and so they either have to teach English or something like that, or they have to save up money for a few years.
Well, I think I think because a lot of us are so lonely and isolated in the States that we buy a lot of crap, and we sign up for monthly services that fill our numbness. And if we would cancel all those extra monthly things and sell all that crap that we bought to feel maybe less isolated, we might have a travel fund just right there that could last a while. And then go find some place overseas where the cost of living is far cheaper. And yeah.
And Mexico's pretty close too. I mean, it's easy to get there.
to me, you know, I traveled for 12 years basically without money, you know, and I've never thought of traveling as more expensive than living in Belgium, you know. It's just if you want to live in Belgium and then go on vacations, you know, that's expensive. But I've grown to be convinced that to travel for anyone right now, you do not need to make more money. You need to make more time. Once you have more time, it doesn't really matter, you know. There's so many ways to have a travel fund. There's so many ways also to start making money on the road that, yeah, it's a rationalization, I think, for not traveling. The money idea, you know, I really, there's too many examples of people doing that, you know, that is really not what's holding back anyone. I mean, the thought maybe, but certainly not the fact.
Yeah, I've heard of
Andres.
guys like traveling around with a bicycle too, and on almost nothing too. I mean, it's not going to be very comfortable, but once you get used to it, I mean, I guess it's possible.
Yeah,
You got to think outside the box a little bit.
I met a French
And,
guy
and there's
who's
people that use hitchhiking to get around too, and without paying anything.
I've met a ton
You
of
know,
those guys. I've met a ton of those guys. I met a French guy traveling the world on his bicycle, and he had a tent, a backpack, and a tent, and a sleeping bag, and and when I met him, he was riding through. I think it was Laos, and we shared a room in a like a hotel room one night, and nothing romantic. I was looking to save a few bucks, and I met a Danish woman traveling on a motorcycle, and I mean, I've met people who they've volunteered to like work on a sailboat to cross the ocean, and yeah, I've seen people living on almost nothing and traveling the world for years. So there's definitely ways to do it. I like Hans. I traveled for about 7 years. I had stopped my business. I had no job. I did different things here or there, for money, but I was gifted a lot of things, and I just used ways of connecting with people and following invitations. And instead of doing it's expensive if you want to do everything your way on your schedule and have all your comforts that you're used to. That's what's expensive. But if you can open yourself up and connect with people and receive and say yes to invitations you get, like in other countries, I've got tons of invitations to come stay with people because I had a great connection with them and the way I showed up. And I think it's not comfortable for most Americans to say yes to an invitation like that. But I did, and it was incredible.
yeah, and you can use stuff like. Have you guys heard of Couchsurfing or Hospitality Club?
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, and on Couchsurfing you can get like free accommodation as you travel too. But you got to be very open minded. To meet a stranger and stay with people, but they're usually very nice people. The people on Couchsurfing and Hospitality Club. I don't know if Hospitality Club is still running, but because the website's down a lot. But there was also another one called globalfreeloaders.com. And I met a lot of nice people through that too, that remained friends afterwards. So
Yeah.
you can meet a lot of nice people on those sites, and you get to stay at their place for free too and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually better than free because what it really is a gift, People want to share their life with you. They want to share their city with you, and they want to share their food with you, and it really is more like a gift of people who really have a desire to connect. And I've had incredible experiences with couch surfing, but I haven't used it other than like from about 2010 to 13 maybe. I used it a decent amount. I think it's changing more and more. At least that's what I heard. It's not quite the same vibe it had when it started. But I actually wrote an ebook, 123 ways to enjoy free stays around the world. And some of them like you might never do. Some of them are pretty out there, but most of them I've actually done. And I wrote it to open people's mind just about like what's possible. And I think as the world changes more and more, you know, the idea is not going to be how much money can I make, but how resourceful can I become? How creative can I be? How many options can I create for myself? And that's a great survival skill, you know, to be able to really think outside of the box, and to have the kind of the confidence, hey, I could go anywhere in the world and thrive, you know, is a wealth unto itself, you know, like we don't have just have to rely on making money.
Have you stayed in hostels too, like dormitory accommodations and stuff?
Yeah, I've stayed in hostels and I've stayed in poshtels. I don't know if you stayed any of those, but like really posh hostels.
Yeah, I mean those are pretty cheap too. You know, you can save a lot if you stay there, and you sometimes you meet a lot of interesting people too.
Yeah, sometimes when I was traveling a lot more freely, I would, after a while, I would just go to hostels sometimes because I want to be in that environment and I want to meet like 30 new people a day from all over the world, and young people. And, you know, sometimes I just did it, not even to save money, but just because I wanted to be in that environment, you know, where strangers from around the world get together in the same like little kitchen and cook their food at the same time and talking and sharing music. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, Andrew? Or
Um, I definitely agree on meeting people, and you have to go out and meet people, because I met a guy from Spain through another friend, and now I'm friends with him. So, you know, meeting people and networking is the key when you're traveling. I wanted to ask just one last question, because I know it's getting dark for you in Mexico. Um, Before we close the discussion here, I wanted to ask all of you, if you believe in God or a higher power.
um, yeah, I would say I do. You know, but you know, I'm kind of the kind of person that believes in a higher power. You know, and in the spirit world, but not in like organized religion. You know, kind of like I see religion as like man's interpretation of God, which is undefinable. But yeah, I mean, the more you travel the world, I think the more you feel like there is some higher power, you know, or higher dimension, and you can sort of see that because it seems like everything happens for a reason, you know, and especially if you go to like Peru and do an ayahuasca ceremony and retreat, I mean, and you have these higher consciousness experiences when you activate your DMT or pineal gland or something or third eye, then you start to realize that yeah, there is some type of consciousness that connects everything in this world, and everything happens for a reason, or maybe not everything, but most things happen seem for a reason, but you don't always see the reason until afterwards. So a lot of I think most travelers eventually think come to that conclusion after a while um that yeah, there does seem to be the higher power, and but 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 it's not like contained within one religion or something, you know, like not, you know, not like a literal interpretation of the Bible, more like a like a metaphorical interpretation, you know. That's my take on it. What do you guys think?
Well, I grew up very, very, very religious. So when I broke free of that, I went on a journey to like explore, you know, what is the truth? What is my mission if it's not what was laid out to me in this very, you know, structured religious context growing up? And yeah, I mean, I won't share it all here, but I'll say I don't have a belief in God like as a supernatural personality and being. But I have experienced ayahuasca in Brazil a few times. That's a journey I want to keep going on. And I know when I had that experience, especially the second time, I just could not believe it was like things were being revealed to me as if someone was showing me this movie that was made just for me, and tears streaming down my face. And like I had more compassion for my mother than I'd ever had in my life, even though I'd worked on that quite a bit and things like that. So,
Mm.
you know, I think I'm always on that journey, but I don't have a belief in God, so to speak.
Yeah,
But do you believe in a higher power? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by higher power, but maybe
Like the
it's
spirit
similar.
world or a higher dimension, you know, like when you have the ayahuasca experience, I mean, don't you connect to a higher reality? And I mean, Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock talk about that all the time. They have so many podcasts about it, and it's very fascinating. I'd like to try it sometime too, the
Yeah,
ayahuasca thing.
I'm very curious. I'm very curious about it. But I don't have like a belief in it, let's say, like I'm not a true believer in something. I'm just curious about it. I don't say that I know that there's not. Like I'm not like, oh, there is none. That's not where I'm at, but I'm curious. So I've definitely, like you said, Winston, travel changes you. What I experienced was when I left the States and I got away from all of my kind of Western ways of promoting and marketing myself and networking and planning my future and all this kind of thing. And I started just really, I did a practice of gifting and receiving, no borrowing money, no selling, no taking loans, none of that. And the transformation I experienced was besides coming alive in beautiful ways, was I really felt like, wow, people do care. Like the world is a beautiful place. Whereas before I felt more like the world was a dangerous place and it was a more of an unfriendly place. And I just had so many experiences that showed me like, wow, like how much human beings really care. And that transformed me. So as far as God, I'm still open to uh, revelations, insight, whatever, but I don't have any belief either way. Hans?
damn, I was hoping no one would ask again. I have no sensible answer to it, except yes, I don't know. I'm convinced there are things that with our current tools and language that we can't explain, or we can't articulate it. Yeah, and there's a lot we don't know in that sense. What really, what I really connect with Michael is I have a true belief in humans and that they're good and that we want to do good and that we're gonna figure it out in terms of relationships, which is to me the last frontier, and we want it so much. We want so much to connect with other human beings that we're gonna figure it out, despite the fact that we're very crippled, and that if we would have a space program the way we run our relationships, we would have given up already. But I'm very hopeful. We want it so much, and once we feel a real authentic connection, it's very healing. Once we feel community, it's a very healing, transformative experience. So I trust humanity in that way. If we don't fuck up the planet in the meantime, that we're gonna figure it out. And I'm very optimistic in terms of like the human intention. So I believe in humans.
What about you, Andrew? What do you think?
Um, I'm definitely open to it, but I think that I'm with Hans on having the more humanistic side that we believing in ourselves, so but I was raised as a Christian, and I went to church and I read the Bible, and I do believe that the Bible has some good teachings, um but I don't believe in a physical God right now, but I believe in being a good person, and that's my belief. But as far as actually going to church, being very religious, that's just not something that I do.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of New Agers nowadays that say that we're all like parts of God having a dream or something, having all one consciousness. I don't know if that's New Age or Hinduism. I think it's a little bit of both, but that's a pretty popular idea nowadays too. But So there's more choices now than being a Christian or an atheist or an agnostic. It seems like there's a variety of choices now too.
Maybe the Big Bang was God having an orgasm, or all like his little sperms, you know, that are going forth looking to create and give
Yeah.
life in the world, you know?
Yeah. But I don't think that we're here by accident. I mean, it doesn't seem like you know, like everything's just chance. It seems like there's some type of higher purpose or beauty or mystery at least.
Yes. And certainly to be curious about that and hunting for that, looking for that is part of what makes life beautiful and magical itself.
Yeah, and the more you travel, the more you see that things are interconnected too. Like just it's part of like an ecosystem. Like you need variety around the world for the whole ecosystem to work. There's you know, everything has a role and a function, almost like a watch piece. You know, each part of the ecological environment depends on another part. So it
Yes.
might be that Earth is all one organism. You know, we're all one organism on the planet or something, and just little cells or something.
Yes. I have a question for you, Andrew and Winston. Do you guys work together, or are you guys like independent?
Well, I make money on my website and from advertising, and that's pretty much enough for me. So yeah, I'm kind of a digital nomad, which means you make some money on the internet, you know, but um, and I do have a son to support in the Philippines too. So but the cost of living is pretty low there, so you know, I don't have to send a lot. So so yeah, I try to live very frugally, so I don't need to make a lot. But yeah, my website does bring in some income every month. So
I was asking if you two work together, Winston, you and Andrew.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I don't. We don't work together. I mean, I know Andrew from my forum because he posts there sometimes.
Gotcha.
And I see him on YouTube, and that's it. Yeah.
I found Winston on by doing searches on YouTube, and I found his video, and then from his video I found his forum, and I reached out to him in a private message. So you know, that's the great thing about the internet, and I think, you know, that, you know, it brings people together in a good way. But you know, I'm a digital nomad also. I work online.
I think
Great.
I just want to thank you, Andrew, for putting this together, because I think that's great. You know, because yeah, we champion the idea of of tasting, at least, you know, abroad, and to see that there are other people doing the exact same thing, that gives me great joy and comfort. You know, so yeah, I'm happy I'm grateful that you put us all together here on the call.
I'm so happy that you all agreed to be on this call. It was a very good discussion, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you
if you guys want to give me your like blog or email or YouTube or whatever, I mean, I can like share your books or videos or whatever, or website on my forum if you want, or
Great, cool. How
or
do we
mailing
reach
list,
you,
yeah.
Winston?
Well, I have Messenger, I have email, and or you can just actually email me through my website, Happier Abroad too. Or
Okay.
Andrew can give you my Messenger or whatever. If
Okay,
you want to,
great.
yeah, add me on Messenger. Yeah.
Great.
But I'd like to
Yeah.
see your books too and videos if you have any.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like this is just the beginning of something. So I'm sure there'll come a day when we want to sit down and interview you guys, you know. So we have some exciting plans in the future. And Winston, for sure, you've been on this journey for quite a while. So it's yeah, there's more to come, I feel, between us. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and you guys are welcome if you want to come to my forum and share your videos or books or whatever, or just your story or whatever. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much.
Do you
All right.
guys have foreign wives, or do you just have foreign girlfriends, or just dating around, or
That's a great
or all
question.
of them?
Concubines and no.
Concubine.
Queens, courtesans, and concubines.
No, we don't have wives. I mean could be a whole other call right there. I'm here in Mexico with a girlfriend who's a really special woman in my life. But that's, yeah, I'm not really looking for marriage. So, Hans,
Yeah.
you want to answer that?
I know. I'm actually my biggest work is reinventing the way we relate, and I felt since very young that the traditional monogamous cohabitant romantic relationship is not one that I just want to simply adopt, you know, and I think it's very limiting in many ways, and it's not one I've signed up for in a long time, and yeah, I think it's that single-minded focus on that kind of relationship is part of a big part of why we're in this relational mess. So I've been on a 15-year journey of trying to understand what it is in relationships that is important to me, and find ways to redesign it, reinvent it, and going abroad, seeing how people relate to one another abroad, how the dating scenes are. That's part of what informs me on how I want to shape my relationship. So I have no wives. I have several relationships that have been going on for many years, and that will go on forever. And I found
23
ways,
children of all colors.
and I found ways to manage and make it a win-win for everyone. And yeah,
Yeah, it
Yes.
seems like marriage complicates things, and it's better to just, if you have a girlfriend, just to have a live-in partner or something.
What about you, Winston?
Because
What's your situation?
oh yeah, I have a girlfriend in the Philippines, you know, and but we're kind of on and off, you know, and I have a couple of other girls I date sometimes, not just in the Philippines, but in Cambodia and Thailand. I used to have some in China, but I think they're all gone now. But um, so yeah, I'm kind of like you guys. The thing about marriage is, you know, it's a three-way contract. It's you, the girl, and the government. You know, and it's not a good idea to involve the government in your life. So it's kind of complicates things. So it seems like more and more it's better to just have a relationship where, you know, you can cohabitate almost like a marriage, but you don't have to make it official, because that can be problematic, unless of course you're really sure she's the one, you know, or the type of guy that really likes to settle down, because not every guy is adventurous or free spirited. Some guys, you know, want to settle down right away, you know. It
Right.
depends on the type of guy.
Yeah,
Some men, yeah, are adventurous, and some want to settle down.
when you get married, it's you, her, and the government's on her side. So it's like
Yeah. It's not to your advantage, really. Yeah.
right.
And there's no
Like
reason why you can't just live together and have a common law marriage, you know. I mean, there's no reason.
yeah. Yeah. Well, Hans and I are, I've been exploring this for a long time as well. And when I grew up, family was the most important value in my religion. And then my parents got divorced and everything went to hell. And I've spent a large part of my life exploring relationships and conflict resolution. And I've done a lot of work on that myself, like led events and done consulting on that. And it's a passion for both of us. And it's both something we're interested in as we travel, is how do people do relationship in other places. And so, yeah, I'm very much on the journey of exploring that. What about you, Andrew?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, your image is frozen, but yes, we
Can
can
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not married, and I don't plan on being married. I've met a lot of good women, and I just think that I don't know. I think people are very happy either being single. I think a lot of people are just very happy being single. I know women who are very happy being single. So I don't think it's right for everyone. I think it's a belief system. Like some people believe in it, and some people don't. And I just don't believe in it.
I would like to say something more because I think with just the traveling, I think it gives an opportunity for us to do more than just say no to the traditional romantic cohabitant romantic relationship. Like Michael says, oh, I'm very much on the search and learning about this, but he for one has developed real technology and things that can help relationships, and so I also find that I'm not just saying no to what's traditional and just accept it. I feel like with the years and experience, I have come up with alternative ways, that are very powerful and way more powerful, and that go way beyond just saying no to traditional relationships. And I found it very important to do that, to not just be able to say, or not just say no to a girl who wants to be your girlfriend, but be able to offer her something that's way more than she ever thought of as what she wanted in a man, And I think that travel and having these experiences can help us articulate and form these new ways of relating, And I'm at a place right now that I feel I have something to offer to women that's way more powerful than what she thinks she wants in a man, And so I no longer just say not no, but I feel I can offer her something that she can really say yes to, And that's what's given me the confidence that I can have these relationships for the rest of my life, And yeah, I just wanted to speak that because I think, yeah, the travel can give us something way more powerful than the strength to say no to traditional relationships,
All right, gentlemen. Well, great to meet you. I'm starting to freeze my toes off over here, so I'm gonna bow
Yeah,
out.
what happened? I thought it was daylight over there. It looked warm and sunny earlier.
It was sunny, but the sun was going down in the last 2 hours, so it's now nighttime and chilly. We're up in the mountains, so when the sun goes down, it's chilly.
Oh, okay.
But let's be in touch. Let's stay in touch.
Yes. We'll contact you also, Winston, via Andrew too, because I think, we would love to learn more from you guys, and maybe set up an interview with each of you personally. I would love to do that.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I follow the Secret Kingdom emails. I read your emails, so they're good.
Great.
Right on, man.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Take care.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Winston. Let's talk soon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Talk soon, gentlemen.
Good to talk.